Rhea Lalla is the CEO of Build Great Minds. She strongly believes that by teaching kids emotional intelligence, you teach them one of the most essential skills that last a lifetime. We definitely agree with that. She is a parenting coach, speaker, author, and a certified trainer and emotional intelligence specialist. For over 20 years, she has successfully delivered keynotes and trainings to Fortune 500 companies, such as JP Morgan Chase, AT&T, Google, Mindvalley, and the United Nations. She has become fascinated by how science can inform how we parent, and she spent 6 years studying the neurological development of children. And today, again, she's here to teach us about adolescent and teen confidence and also talk about bullying. Rhea, do you want to add anything to your bio, or do you just want to get into this?
We can just jump in. I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. At the root, I'm a relationship coach. Like, that's what I do. I'm fascinated by what keeps people connected in a relationship and what unconsciously we're doing to disconnect, whether it's from a parent to a child or to a spouse or anybody. So that's the part that I'm fascinated with. And that's what I've really spent 20 years trying to help other people do, is figure out where the gaps are so that they can fill it. So no, we can just jump in. I'm excited.
Perfect. So everyone listening, if you are here on the Zoom call, reminder, if you navigate towards the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A box. We will be taking at least 30 minutes of Q&A questions, specifically from the Q&A box for Rhea. And of course, if you're on Facebook, feel free to dialogue and interact with each other there. Please share this video so that we can get this information out to parents everywhere. Guys, there are tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of parents out there that need our help. So please let's share this. And of course, if you are here in the chat box on the Zoom call, I will try to present some of your real-time comments that are coming up as well. So Rhea, I'm curious, what is your definition of confidence? Maybe you can just start there.
Yeah. So I believe that confidence is whenever we can turn our thoughts into an action. So that might be when a child wants to raise their hand triumphantly in class and say, choose me. Or perhaps a child, a teen, wants to try out for a team and they have the thought to do, but whether or not they can put it into action and actually go out and give it a go. It's whenever a child, I mean, this expands past children, it goes to adults as well, but whenever we can follow our internal compass, where we can overcome our anxiety and our fear and transform it into action. So this is not, this is also actually when we can hold our boundaries, as an example. So we might be a people pleaser and we want to say yes all the time, but being able to go inwards and realize, what is it that I really want here? And maybe I actually don't want to do what you're asking me to do. And you say no, that takes confidence. I think historically, culturally, the way we've envisioned confidence is a certain bravado as we move through the world, and we can stand up on stage and we can wax lyrical, and it's how we move through a room and everybody likes us and we kind of go, oh, that's confidence, I want that. And I want to make a really important distinction, because if confidence actually is turning a thought we have into an action, like whatever we're dreaming about and hoping that we want to create, and into something that we're actually doing to what we want, then there's a distinction between that bravado confidence and the quiet confidence that knows you can get something done, which means that you can have a person that is able to create and make their dreams come true and go after them with all the vigor in the world, but they don't come out like da 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 da. They don't have that necessarily unless they want to have that because it's useful to them, right? So I think that many times parents are thinking, get on the stage. And that's a wonderful way culturally, but that's not the only way confidence comes. We want to make sure that, you know, if kids, teens, parents can turn their thoughts into an action, you're away to the races.
I've never heard this distinction before. Let us know if this resonates with you all. Confidence is when we can turn thoughts into action. I had a huge light bulb go off when you just said this. So now I'm curious about, is there a way that we can tune into our child's particular flavor of confidence, because I'm suspecting that, as you just said, we kind of have these illusions, if you will, or the labeling of, oh, that person on the stage or this or that, they are confident. So I suppose we're probably projecting onto our kids that maybe if we're not seeing certain ways of being, that perhaps they're not confident, but maybe they actually are in other ways and we're missing it. Help me out on this.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what we want to first then do with our children, or engage your children with, is to bring them to the table. So, I mean, everyone who knows me and follows me knows that I'm really big on the how-to. So I want to kind of break it down. We want to figure out what is it that the child wants to create. Okay. And by the way, this is a great exercise for even parents. Think about, you know, a really yummy sunny morning, and we sit down, we have breakfast, and you say, hey guys, I'd love for us to think about what is it that we want to create in our life? Because I'm a firm believer that so the question you asked is, how do you know whether the quiet, confident person or the bravado confidence? I have to first be able to get a feel for my child, right? I have to get a feel for what their values and their beliefs and how they move through the world. But I'm not going to know that unless I understand what is it that they want to create? Who do they want to be, right? Now that sounds like a really big question, but it doesn't have to be. So it could be as simple as, you know, right now, what is it that you want to create in your life? What are some of the things? I mean, put another way is, what do you want, right? And it could be, would you want to be able to, like right now that's happening in their life, do you want to be able to stand on stage and do your speech? Do you want to be able to just go out for the team? Do you want to start your own business? Like, what is it that you want? And as they begin to drill down on what they want, they get an idea of, okay, these are the things that I'm attracted to. As a parent, it's very crucial because this is where you get to invite dialogue and interest and support and encouragement and ask really interesting questions of your child. The other piece of this too is, you know, thinking about, so as they begin to flesh out what does they want to create, I also think figuring out, you know, what are the things that might even challenge them a little bit. So I'm going to give you an example. If I'm really good at math and I say I want to go out and join the math team, that might be, you know, that might take something from me. That might take a little bit of confidence, but that might be totally different than saying I want to put myself in front of people, in front of a crowd and do a speech, like go out for like the student speeches or going out for student council or whatever might be going on. That would take, would you agree, more confidence in order to go for something like that? It kind of pushes them a bit more out of their comfort level.
I think, well, see, this is where I find it so fascinating, all of these distinctions, because I think we are all born with our inherent gifts. Mm-hmm. And for one person, what is going to feel really outside of their comfort zone is going to be entirely different, you know, for another person. And so I just think that it's so fascinating to want to find out, what is our kids' thing? Like who are they in this whole spectrum? Like what triggers them, you know, what might make them scared, what might be easy breezy to them that is not to us at all as parents.
I agree. And finding out what that special thing, I mean, they're discovering that all the time. An attuned parent can pick up on cues and you can start to see things, and that changes over time, but you really have to have your antennas out to look and see what's lighting your child up and really supporting that. But I do believe that everyone has their own individual thing. And this is why I actually believe that building confidence is so important, because no matter what your spiritual or religious views are, we have only X amount of time on this planet in this form. And that unique voice of your child, or even yourself as a parent, not getting that out there for impact, because when that voice leaves, it's never in that perfect combination ever going to come again. So that's one of the reasons why we really want to build this skill in our kids, is because the impact that we get to make, and everyone has their own unique thing, and we got to figure out what that is. Mm-hmm. So what I'm really talking about here is, to try and figure out what's the confident thing, or which direction your kids are going into. We want to be able to ask really good questions and create the space. It seems so simple, but often we don't talk about those type of things. Like what lights you up? And what are the things that would be a challenge for you? And of course, we want to help our kids to be able to write that down, because even the research shows that, you have a 42% chance of being able to reach something if you actually write it down. But then you can start getting into things like their values, to understand what is it that they value. So if somebody is interested in building something, like let's suppose they wanted to build, I don't know, a greenhouse in the backyard, that might be something that is exciting and interesting and engaging to them. It pushes them past their comfort level, but they're not necessarily falling into the cultural mode of they want to be on a stage somewhere. So this is about listening and asking questions, and based on what lights them up or the questions you ask. I mean, this begs another question. One of the roles of parenting is getting really good at asking good questions, right? In fact, I would even argue that you can turn every single thing you ever say to your children ever into a question. And
how do we do that?
Okay.
Because I know people are asking that right now, because I'm over here going, yes, this is true, because I have seen so many turnarounds with a good question, just from the people that we've been talking to, in the last 2 weeks now on the series. It's like one good question can just turn, everything. So how do we get better at getting curious and asking these questions to our kids?
Well, the best way to get better is to start asking questions that maybe aren't so good, and then learning from it and analyzing why. So I'm going to give like a little, I'm going to give everyone in the audience right now an example of how you can use a good question. So think of something that you want your child to become aware of. So let's suppose it's something really simple. It's dinner time. Okay. So how do you say, right now you want to tell your kids that it's dinner time, which is a statement that you would give them. Hey kids, it's dinner time, come downstairs, into a question. So we could say something like, hey guys, it's 6:30, it's 5:30. What time is it? Like what normally happens at this time? Like it's a question that throws out. So like a child has to go internally to understand, okay, or how about if you have to get the kids onto a bus, and you could say, hey guys, don't forget your homework, don't forget your book bag, don't forget your lunch, the bus is coming in 10 minutes. You've spoon fed them everything to think. Or you could just say, hey, so now the child has to go, mom's tapping at her watch. Why is she tapping at her watch? Oh, yesterday she had to drive me and she was really upset that she had to drive me to school. And this is where you use motions or questions. So the way to build it is to start asking questions, and then ideally not a question that involves yes or no. Okay. So as open-ended question as you can.
Can I ask you a question about the question? So I'm assuming, because the premise of all of this is really building relationship, because I do that. I do what you're saying. It's dinner's ready, and it's, well, okay, so my son, who is only 28 months, as soon as he sees that the dinner is done, he actually goes to the foot of the steps and yells up to my husband and says, Akira, dinner's ready. Because that's what I say. Right. So I'm just asking, I'm assuming that some of the things that you're teaching around the relationship building with our kids probably is cross-contextual, and is also really great for our relationships with our friends, with our spouse, etc. Because I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, how much more engaging would it be if I just simply said to my husband, what do you think I made tonight? Oh, or just something like that, other than yelling up at the top of the steps.
So absolutely. So this is, you're building a relationship because you're curious, and you're wanting to engage them into, to be self-directed, first of all, because you don't want to be the naggy mommy that's telling them what to do. That's what has people go, leave me alone. Don't tell me what to do. So if you ask a question, they have to go inwards, and people don't generally get angry about answering a question, because there's something that feels a little bit polite about it, right? Or a bit more engaging. So that's really what you're going for when you're building relationship. Yeah.
Can I share something with you? This is from Nikki. She says, I think today the challenge is getting them, I assume she's saying kids, to attune to their inner selves as opposed to following everyone on their social media or peers at school, and especially for teens.
Yeah. So this goes back to the next point, and that is really trying to understand where your kids' values are and how they've come about it, where their beliefs are. That can't just happen in a vacuum with your child as they're on social media in their room. We need to create a dialogue. We need to have a really great discussion. Now, if people are asking, well, how do I do that? What do I need to do such that my child wants to listen to me and have those conversations? That's a different conversation. That conversation is, well, listening is a function of relationship. So if the child isn't listening and doesn't want to spend time with you, then forget confidence for a second and go back to step one, which is, what do I need to do such that this child feels good around me? The reason why kids follow other kids is because a child will go to anything that allows their needs to be met, their emotional needs, their physical needs. And they might have physical needs because, okay, the house gives them a bed to sleep in and some clothes. But if your emotional needs are being met by your friends or people on social media, and you're getting like a little hit of adrenaline every time because your esteem is so closely tied to a like on Facebook or Instagram, or I don't know, I'm not really on Instagram, but I don't know if you like them or what happens on there. But
yes.
That's something that is step one. So you're not going to be able to get to that until you go back and build the relationship. And so that means sacrificing, I'm going to say it, it means sacrificing all your agendas, all the things that you're wanting to try to download to your kid. You don't want to teach them anything. The number one step is, how do I build back the relationship? You might feel terrified because you're thinking, no, I'm afraid for my child's life. I'm afraid for where this is going to go. I got to stop it now, because you're spinning out of control, thinking where this is going to go in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I'm saying, come back from that, center yourself. And the most important thing a parent can have is to hold a vision of their own child's magnificence, as in this: there is no other way this is going down than my child is going to overcome it, and they are going to be thriving, successful in their life. That stand deep within your soul has to be solid. The kids can smell when you're in terror and panic, like a frightened animal. So you want to make sure that whatever you have to do to ground to the earth, to make sure whatever conversation you have to give yourself, that is the priority. Because otherwise your word, your energy is going to betray you. So that's part one. We want to build the relationship before anything that feels fantastic but pales in comparison to your child's listening.
Yeah, I want to present some things, and I want to go into that a little bit deeper and also kind of do a summary for people at the same time. Anna V. Castro, you have a great question in the chat box. Could you please actually move that question into the Q&A, because I'd like to ask Rhea that later. I want to go back just so that we have everyone kind of in the same loop with what Rhea is sharing, because I started numbering some of the questions that she was asking, how we can get into dialogue with our children around confidence. So I want to do the summary. Number one, what does the child want to create? Number two, get curious about that and how can they get there? Number three, what are the things that might challenge them? And then number four, what are their values? Now, she is proposing, and I love that you're bringing this up, Rhea, because this actually ties together so many comments that I have seen on almost every call up until this call with you. And I get it. I resonate with every parent that's sharing that and sharing this. And this is why I'm going to bring it up to Rhea again, because I feel like she's giving us the answer that we have been asking for in all these other calls. A lot of parents are in pain, Rhea, because their kids won't do their homework. Their kids don't listen. They try to talk to them and they get an automatic shoulder shrug, or I don't want to talk to you, or yelling no and walking into the other room. Basically, no two-way conversation that is going on. This is a huge pain point. Please, parents on Facebook and also on Zoom, chime in if this has been a pain point for you, because I think it's so important what you're sharing, Rhea, about holding the vision and taking the stand. And so I want you to unravel and unpack this again, because I already know that what it's bringing up for me And what it's bringing up for the other parents here is you don't understand. Like, my heart is totally in it. I'm being the safe space. I'm doing everything that I know how to do. I'm feeling like there's no solution. Basically, I don't know what else to do in order to be a safe space, so that my child wants to show up and listen to me. So let's just walk us through that process again really quickly, because this is super important.
Okay, so when a parent says, I don't know what else to do, I've done everything, I believe that they've done everything at the limit of the tools that they have present in their arsenal right now. So all of us, including me, I'm a function of whatever, like all the things I know about myself, but all of my biases, all of my beliefs, all of my blind spots. The thing is that I am not aware of my blind spots. I don't know that maybe I'm not self-aware in that moment, the way I said that, or the tone I use, or the timing that I said it in created a distance, created a disconnect. So I have to acknowledge that I'm only as good as I think I am, right? But there's a whole other reality that's happening with the other person. And so until I figure out what that reality is, then I'm going to continue doing everything I think that I should be doing, but not the things that are actually holding me back from creating this with my child. So in order to figure out that, there's a number of different things. One is we need to, again, ask good questions, okay? So one of my favorite questions I'm going to share, and this may have come up in earlier Little Humans videos, but so I've asked my kids this question ever since they were 4 years old. Okay, this is one of the questions I've asked probably every night of their life, and that is, how did you feel loved by mommy today? How did you feel loved by mom? Did I miss the mark at any time? Was there a moment that I missed? And I'm going to share with the parents that how much your child tells you in that moment, because a lot of times people are afraid to ask the question because maybe nobody even asked them that question when they were younger. And they're a bit terrified of the answer maybe, because maybe they felt like today I wasn't present. But this is where we roll up our sleeves and we get courageous. We ask the question so that we can find out what we're doing well and where we might have missed the mark. Now, how much our kids tell us is a direct function of how safe they feel. Because remember, you and your partner or whoever is in the household is like the god and the goddess of their life. They don't want to do anything that brings them down. This is why we can talk and say something about our parents, but heaven forbid if anyone else talks bad about our parents, right? So now we want to, I lost my train of thought there.
You're saying ask good questions, and then how much they're responding is how safe they feel.
Good. So now when the child shares something with you, and sometimes they don't have anything, so maybe you can use your intuition and your own attunement to the space to try and guess, right? If I were to ask this question to a friend, I would want to create the safe space, and I would say, listen, you would be doing such a service to my life if you could give this to me, because the most important thing that before I die, the most important thing I want to nail is how to love you in the way you want to be loved. And I know that I'm doing something that is keeping us distant. I know that I know that there were places with my mom where I felt misunderstood, or I felt like the love wasn't landing, or I just felt frustrated. And here's the thing. I know she was doing the best she could with what she had. However, I don't want that life. I am hungry to try and learn this. So here's what I need. I'm going to need you to help teach me. There may be times I use a tone. There may be times that I say something at the wrong time. There may be times where you think that I'm bullying you into something. I don't know. But here's the thing. I would love to learn. So if you could just give me just one thing that I can work on, and I just want to check in with you to see if I'm in the right direction. And then the child goes, well, I feel that, I don't know, like think about the things that make your heart stop. Well, I feel like you don't spend time with me. Okay, let's just suppose that was it. Every parent is going to want not every parent, but you might feel and want to defend yourself, right? Or I'm trying to think, even with younger kids, they might say, well, I just want to be hugged more. I don't know how many teens are saying that, but I have a bunch of kids. I have a teen who really likes hugs. That, if I'm egoically attached to, of course I hug people, and of course I hug you, I could get defensive if I wasn't mindful in that moment. right? So I have to make sure that whatever they say, the receptivity that they get from me is like this. My eyes are wide. I've got even a pen and a paper. I'm curious. I go, teach me. That's the level of vigilance I want to show them. They feel it in their heart that there's nothing that's more important than this. And then I'm going to take good notes. I'm going to get granular. Like if they said, I just want you to, be nicer. There's nothing I can do with nicer because I don't know what nicer means. So I want to get granular. I want to be like an archaeologist and dig to the bones of what they mean by nicer. What's the time, space? And again, nothing about my energy shows defensiveness. It's only curiosity and engagement. Then the ninja trick is when they say that, the next day, I'm going to follow up. I'm going to make that my highest priority. I'm going to look at that first thing in the morning, and then I'm going to do whatever it is, because at the end of that questioning period, I have a very specific how-to. Like they've literally helped co-create a how-to for me. So then I'm going to go the next day and I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to check in and I go, how'd that go for you? I'm really working on this. How was this for you? And then you get some feedback. And here's the thing. This is where, as parents, we've got to put our ego to the side for the sake of something bigger. Oh, I still think you're doing that. That's like a dagger to the heart, right? Let's just suppose that happened. It
will happen.
But if it doesn't, bearing in mind, this is where it takes courage to be a parent. It's a gladiator sport. Yeah. You can take that as, okay, I suck, and here we go again, and then go back into that power struggle that you guys that dance that we're used to.
Or this is the big one, I think, or we get mad at our kid because we think, well, we've shown up and we've been present, and like, what else could you possibly want? I think, to be honest, that's a trigger that comes up.
Totally. Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. Then we have to get somatically aware that we're actually angry. And then remember, the timeout is never for the kid. You take a timeout, ground yourself back into your own magnificence, back into your child's magnificence, and create a story for why the child related like that. And, when you're calm, we can ask questions like, what was it about me that triggered that response? Maybe the child was angry. Maybe things didn't go the way they wanted to that day, and a friend, betrayed them, or they got left out of a group and they're just angry. And then you were at the end of that. I don't know, but it's so much more useful to remember the sadness or the fear behind the anger before you just react to the anger. Now, do you have to channel the mind of God or channel the universe in order to do that? Well, there are really great strategies that you can develop so that you are less likely to be reactive when you're being triggered. So, for example, for me, now I'm going to tell everyone that's listening today, do I always have it together? Do I never have a tone? Like, my kids are so sensitive to tone. Do I never have a tone or never lose it with them? Of course not. This is what it is to be human. But I'll tell you what I'm really good at. I know that when I miss the mark everywhere because I'm just spiraled up into a frenzy and I didn't do what I needed to do, I know how to go back and heal it so that, I personally believe that conflict creates a lot of intimacy. So that's what I do. I have to go back and heal it, which is more work, but I don't make myself wrong for it, because if we can heal, which we can, we can heal anything, not by I'm sorry, because I'm not a believer in I'm sorries. But we can heal it so that we have a deeper understanding of each other. And if we have a deeper understanding of each other, meaning I know that when I go, you go, ooh, and that somehow is we're fighting about that, then I can go, oh. And here's the thing, folks, is that the person who is meant to lead, whether we like it or not, but actually this is the greatest joy, really, when you think about it, is the parent. It's always us. The parent is always meant to hold space for the child, not the child for us. So which means that
say that again, Mama. Everything you're saying, by the way, is giving me goosebumps, and especially that.
The parent was always meant to hold space for the child, not the reverse. The child is not meant to hold space for you, meaning, yes, you're tired. Yes, you're being triggered. Yes, you're angry, and yet you're still expected to lead. In that moment, if you can't lead, it's okay, because all of us are in there with you. Mm-hmm. However, go and find the ways. I mean, this is what, coaching allows you to do, is figure out how to soothe your system so you can come back and show up in the way you feel proud of, right?
What are some other examples, Rhea, of how people can soothe their systems? And maybe some of the people on the chat, they can share with us what their ways of soothing their system. For me, it's a timeout meditation. I kind of just have my connectedness dialed in like in 5 minutes there, but I would love to hear what breath work. Oh my goodness, that is such a great one. By the way, Tanya says, Rhea, that she asked her son some of these questions after watching your Little Humans episode, and they work like magic. Thank you, Rhea. Yeah, so maybe share some examples. What works for you?
I have a little bit more of an intense thing when I'm really triggered. And sometimes it's differing things. So on the whole, I have to look where do I actually, so I've gotten really good at figuring out where I hold any pain that in my body. And so the reason why I think this is crucial is if there were 10 things that annoyed me during the day and I didn't catch that because I'm in a flurry of activity, and then something happens with my teen, because I now have a teen, oh my gosh, with my teen, I could think that my reaction is a result of what just happened. But I haven't clued into that was building all day long that had nothing to do with them. Maybe my husband, I thought he was going to do something, but he didn't do it. And then I felt frustrated. And then I was stressed because I knew I had to do something for my business. And all these things were building and so when I figure out where it is in my body, then I can do things to soothe myself somatically. But we know that the fastest way is to go to your breath. Now, I just want to say something about your breath. Everyone talks about breath. By now, probably everyone who's a Mindvalley follower or not knows about going to your breath. I'm going to just share this really quickly. I remember once I was in the car and my husband and I always start road trips holding hands. Like it's just a thing we do. We're going to start the road trip. He's got one hand on the wheel, probably not safe, but the other hand's holding my hand. And I got in the car and I was really frustrated at him. And I thought, oh, how are we going to go on this trip? Not even holding hands. And then I turned on the radio and there just happened to be a song that I love. And then I was able to get into my body in that moment because that's what music does. You're in your body. So the reason why breath works is because you want to be in your body. So if you're ever so hyper that you can't find your breath, go put on a song that you love. Go move your body. Go take a walk. Do something that releases some endorphins in your body, even though every part of you wants to go like this. Right? Move a little bit if you can't find your breath. Otherwise, breath is a fantastic way. There's a few other really great ones I can share later on as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And also secondarily, what you just shared is ironically or not, such a good strategy for confidence because often we are feeling such anxiety when we start to leave our body, and get really entangled in our nervous system. So, doing the things I love, Cassinia, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm sorry, says do squats. That's my favorite go-to for being in my body too. Squats just get you on the primal thing. Okay, so Rhea, let's finish up those two thoughts because we have so much to get to here, and I know there are like a lot of questions as well. Sure. So as far as the going back to the basics, setting up that deep connective experience with your kids so that you have a better two-way conversation and so that they are able to actually listen and you two feel like both of your needs are being met. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about that particular set of conversation?
No, because that's pretty much it. That is the thing that trumps everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then for the original points that we were sharing around how to help create more confidence for your kids, I had the 4 points written out here. Was there anything else that we wanted to add to that list? Because the last one you shared was getting to their values.
Right. So we want to make sure that, well, basically what we're doing really for this is we want to reverse engineer what it is they want to create. So that you're first letting them attach to what's the dream, as granular as possible, okay? And then from that, you're going to tease away, you're going to deconstruct. What do you want to create? What are some of the things that you want to create that are a challenge for you? You're going to get them to write it down. I think another piece is you want to think about who are your role models, yeah? for everyone that's listening, we need to be our children's role model. If we're not our children's role model, then we go back to the fundamentals, which is you build a relationship. Okay, that doesn't mean you're your only role model. Like I love the fact that my son, for example, loves Stephen Curry. He loves Gordon Ramsay for cooking. He loves Kilian Jornet for long distance running. He has role models that aren't just me or his dad. And these are people that he admires. He likes what they're doing in the world. He watches Charisma on Command. I have some YouTube thing. But he likes the guy that's on it. I love that he likes people that are inspiring. But here's the thing. When he finds those role models, I want to figure out what is it about them that you admire and that you love and you think is amazing about them. What are the things that you want to, well, when they say what they admire, what that's really saying is, this is what I want to create more in my life of, right? So I think figuring out who their role models are, these are questions that are, I think that all through the life of your children, we can be exploring that. So yes, we want to do that. And also, we really want to think about, I think an important one is growth and fixed mindsets. So Carol Dweck talks a lot about that. But if we want to help build our kids' confidence, if a child has, so I just want to just quickly explain the distinction between growth and fixed mindset. A growth mindset is where a child at any age believes that your intellect, your talents, your ability is something that can be built over time. A fixed mind, so that's a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is one where you feel that some people just have the gift of the gab. I wasn't born with the gift of the gab. Some people are just really good at something. I'm just not really good at something. We talk about that 10,000 hours it takes to be great at something. That 10,000 hours is really Malcolm Gladwell. That is growth mindset. So if your child has a fixed mindset, it's going to be much harder for them to build confidence. We want to start doing things to help them get into a growth mindset.
And what are some more examples of the fixed mindset, if you will? And I would love to see in the chat box, please let me know if you feel as though your kids are fixed or a growth mindset. And what would be another example of a fixed mindset, Rhea?
Fixed mindset is where you're constantly seeking approval for somebody. You're more interested in the outcome than the process. And we tend to feed into that. I mean, we actually rob from our kids' confidence because we live in a culture where we only reward the outcome. So it's, a kid sticks a pom-pom on a piece of paper and they go, I did this. And then the parents go over the top excited because they stuck a pom-pom. I'm not saying that that's not, that could be a really great thing depending on the age of the child, but we want to make sure that the child is in love with when neurons were firing and they were trying to piece together something and it didn't work out and everything fell. We want to reward that by praising the effort and not the outcome. So when the child comes home with the mark that they are really proud of, instead of saying, wow, you're so smart, or wow, what a great job you did, go, I can see you must have been really working hard. That's it. I can see you've been working really hard. I can see you've been really taking time to, improve. Fantastic. And just be cool, like really be cool about it. So I think that that's some of the ways. Also, the words we use. If your kids are saying, I can't, or it's too hard, Henry Ford said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So what we're really saying there is your words become your world. It's something I've told my children all the time. If you say you can't do something, then you're feeding into this fixed mindset. So we want to be careful of the words. We want to make sure the kids are in which means here's a simple thing you can do, because, I love how-tos. When you're home and having dinner with your kids, instead of talking about what'd you do today, or, I scored a goal in soccer. I got 99% on my quiz. How about what's something you tried today that you didn't do very well, or you failed at? And then everybody is like, you almost make it into the comedy show of delight and sharing. But guess who else is part of that? Me. So the time that I put myself out there and I was really nervous to go on radio or I forgot what I was going to say, like I want to share those moments of trying and it didn't quite work out, because mom and dad live in this world of perfection. Like we don't have to be soccer players. We go outside and against our teams, we could probably easily score a goal. And I think that they never get to see with a parent, there's a beginning, a middle, and end, because we're grown up. We have many years on them, much more experience. So we want to be able to show them that there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And sometimes and often I'm in the mess. But how often as parents are we sharing that messy bit, or that nervous, or that fear, or that uncomfortability with our kids? We don't, because we kind of go, well, we don't want to think about it, far more share it. So this is where we celebrate and create that into just a fun thing you do at dinner time.
Mm-hmm. Now, do these mindsets, do they shift over time, or are we just kind of predisposed in that way?
Mindset?
Yes.
That is something that we actively cultivate. So we're not predisposed to a fixed or growth mindset.
Okay.
If I had to fathom a guess, I'd say we're more inclined towards a growth mindset, but we steal from the moment and turn it into a fixed.
I think so. I'm getting a lot of fixed mindset in the chat box right now. Do you have any further suggestions for those? I'm getting I haven't even really seen, I mean, I could have missed it, but I'm seeing a lot of fixed mindset.
So with fixed mindset, this is really key. Okay. Think about, you want to help your child, and even for yourself, because you as a parent might have your own fixed mindsets.
Yeah, that's a good question to ask yourself. Are you a fixed or are you a growth mindset?
Like you consciously kind of helped create the space for that in the household. Okay, and that's okay. We need to become vigilant to where are the places that, or find evidence for the places that we weren't so good, but we got better. So probably one that most people can identify with is riding a bike. Most people might know how to ride a bike, okay? Did you know from day one how to ride a bike? No. You had a moment where you were wibbly wobbly. Maybe you fell off the bike. Maybe you crashed into something. Something happened. And then eventually, after like a few days or a few weeks or however many times someone would go out with you, you became strong at riding a bike. Okay. So that is something that everyone can pull from when they're in their fixed mindset, that there was a place that you were here, and here's some evidence that with time, attention, work, mindfulness, effort, you got here. That's where we have to be on the hunt for. We're hunting for those places to show evidence to our children who can't see it, that there are places where you were here and you got here through effort. So whether you have to pull from a sport, a musical instrument, riding a bike, there will be something that your child was able to do. Even walking. Did the child just get up one day and start running all around the house? No. They stumbled, they fell, they took 5 steps. Maybe they army crawled until eventually they can pull themselves up. This is where you want to bring their mind to. But something that is like the more recent and relevant, the better.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's a super, super good strategy. Okay, so we're going to go boom, boom, boom. Because there's so many things. Like, I literally wish I could talk to you for 3 hours. This is amazing. I want a presence. It is done past in the chat box, but I see you and I hear you. The person who was making a comment about social media. I wonder if for those of us that are having the experience, with our teens and with all the external attention that they give to social media and all the comparison that goes along with that, something that you said about the role models and getting curious about why your children have certain role models. I wonder if that conversation could even work with some of these instances with, say, giving away their power to, other people on social media, or wanting to be more like, the other people, because there might actually be a positive way of looking at that. What do you think about that, Rhea?
Well, I want to talk about specifically something you just brought up about giving power away to somebody else.
Yeah.
So let's start. I always go back to the household. What's happening in the household? There are many ways that we give our power away from the time our kids are small. So a child goes, Mommy, I really want to have, like, from a young age, I really want to have a cookie. Can I have a cookie? And there's a whine. So from an early age, what you want to do, and even now, whatever age your kids are, is you want to stop them and go, hey, wait a second. When you whine or you say something without, like, as if you know your mind, you are giving away your power. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to see that you're successful by owning what you want. So when my kids would come with any sort of whine when they were younger, I'd say, but this is on the banks of them knowing that I have their back unshakably. And I go, no. Don't give your power away. Ask for what you want. You want a popsicle? So they try again. Oh, no, can I have a popsicle? I go, no, try again. Mom, I'd like to have a popsicle. I go, good. Yes, don't give your power away.
Oh.
In that moment. So this is in the household when they want something. I want to have some more time on electronics. I want to make sure that they're not trying to like protect me, or they're not trying to dance some dance that they feel that's going to get them what they want. And so they have to go into this kind of passive, can you, mommy, please? I don't know, because I don't know if I use a really strong, empowered sentences or an empowered voice, whether you're going to like that. I better like that if I want my child to do that out in the world. Mm-hmm. So I want them to start from day one with me when they're speaking to me, which is why whining, we got to get that out so that and I have to be okay with it. I have to go, wow, this sounds different, because they go from baby voice to like a grown-up in the house. Mom, I'd really like a popsicle. And which you can, and here's the thing, just because I asked in an empowered way doesn't mean you have to give in. But initially, I do want to start to reward a little bit so they can know, good job, and you finding your self-expression.
A part of me wants to cry right now. I mean, honestly, I'm over here just covered in goosebumps, because there are so many soul yeses that are going on. I mean, this is everything, Rhea. Thank you so much for sharing that. The chat box is going off over here. Can we go longer? I don't know, I'll ask you, are you okay with going a couple of minutes, say 5 or 10 minutes longer? You might have another call coming up. I have to ask Kaya, who is our beautiful admin running this call, who is actually in Europe and on a totally different time zone. So maybe she can pipe in and see if we can go 5 or 10 minutes longer. This is just gold. And by the way, this even makes my news at the end coming up even more exciting. So now everyone has to stay for that. Okay, so Rhea, I want you to touch on, because I'm totally getting to the questions in the Q&A box. Can you please touch on some specific strategies and insights around bullying?
Oh, bullying, yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to speak first about if you have a child that's being bullied. Okay. And then we can go to if you think your child's the bully, which hopefully we're always holding that as a possibility, because it's a worthy possibility to hold, just so you can explore that. How do you help a child that's being bullied? Obviously, this is a big issue. They say that 1 in 5 children are being bullied in some form of another. Telling a child, like empowering a child to say, stop it, or that hurts my feelings. Now, I live in the world of feelings. I'm always talking about feelings. But to say that to a bully, because let's figure out how the bully came to be in the first place. A bully is created because they were lacking power and control in the household. Something in the household. A child is not born. They don't come out of the womb a bully. Something in the socialization, in the experiences that have happened in that child's life has created something where they feel that somebody is bullying or controlling them. And as a result, they feel powerless. And then they go, I want to feel powerful. Because guess what? Every single one of your children, every human on the planet wants to feel power and control. If they're denied that, this is not I should give them. This is a requirement. No matter how old your kid is, even if they're 5, they need to feel like they have power and control. Okay. So if they don't have it, all sorts of problems happening. And one of the byproducts is they start bullying. So they start, enforcing either physical or words. So let's just take at school. Everyone's off school right now, but if the child were to say, I want you to empower them to say, stop it, or that hurts my feelings. I'm not a believer that works. Okay. Because that's exactly what the bully's preying on. The bully wants to hurt your feelings, and they don't care that it's being hurt. And you're not going to be the one that's all of a sudden going to create that epiphany moment for them. So what we need to do is we need to empower our kids to find that inner strength and fortitude, the lioness, the lion that lives inside of them, so they can stand up, because mommy and daddy are not always going to be there. So you can role play that. I'm a big believer in role play, and I can talk about that.
Yes, give us an example. We love role play and examples.
Okay, yeah. So
yes,
role play. So if somebody was bullying you at school, and my child says, well, every time he says this, I don't know what to say at that moment. Like he says, you're ugly, or you're stupid, or what, you don't know the answer to that question, like whatever craziness they happen to say. In that moment, what we're practicing out with the child is, again, like you're channeling the lioness or lion inside of them. You're going to go, whether it's the words back off, or you say something like, even if it's the word stop it, but it's how to stop it. Like I'm almost afraid, because if I channel my inner lioness, the stop it that comes out on my face, the voice, the intonation of what I'm saying is now, I'm summoning every ounce of my courage. I'm pulling from my baby toe. Like I could cry just thinking about it.
yes,
To let them know that when they say that to me, that it's going to stop, right? Or leave me alone. But they have to feel that you are willing to fight. You're going to fight energetically. I'm going to fight for this, because they're not going to give you the respect. You have to summon it. And so this is, you see this, and even in the Disney movies where the bear was really, I just recently saw one with the kids, The Call of the Wild. I don't know if that was a great movie, but there's a point in the movie where the bear is always like scaring the dogs. And at the end, the dog steps into his power and he lets out his bark and he walks to them. Now, the question now begs itself, well, how do we get to that? How do you get to the place where the child finds that lioness? And so now what we want to bring the child become conscious of is, where are the places in their life where they found that inner voice and they stood for something, whether it was their brother or sister. It could be something small. It was even when the mom said, did you take this cookie? And the child defiantly goes, no, I didn't. Like that, like wherever you saw a smell of that lion or lioness, you want to go, that, I want you to channel that, because you feel wronged in that moment, right? When I said that, you felt defensive of yourself and you felt wronged. And now I want you to channel that voice. And here's why. Because I've seen this. I've been exploring bullying for a while. I'm fascinated about what goes down in schools. And I've realized that there is a problem at the school. With all the bullying programs they have, they generally don't work. And I'll tell you why in just a second. They don't work because the bully is clever enough to do the bullying where the teacher or the principal can't see. And then now everyone's worried about being sued or being wronged, or the teachers choosing sides. So they want evidence, but there's none to be had. It's one child's word, assuming they even came to the teacher with it. So the principals and the teachers are very fearful. They're saying, well, do you have any proof? There's Snapchats. No one's going to see a Snapchat that just disappeared, because that's the whole thing about Snapchat. It's going to go within minutes. So this is where the bullying program has to be something very different, radically different. What we need to do is empower the children to find their voice. And you do that by allowing them a voice in the household, because if they don't feel like they have a voice, if they're just like a puppet to you, you're the boss and they're not, they're never going to trust their voice. So you are building, like, the relationship you have with them, it still comes back to the fundamentals. That relationship helps them build a sense of trust, a sense of empowerment. And on the banks of that, and looking at places in their life where they were powerful. And then the role play will be, this is what you do, is you walk in and you pretend you're the bully. You say whatever it is the child says that they're saying. And you come up to them and you snarl your face and you do everything. And the first time your child says it, they're going to say, stop it. And then they're going to say, or back off, or they're going to say, I don't like that. And then you're going to go, no, we're going to try again. And if they don't get it right, you're going to channel it for them. You're going to show them and they're going to emulate, and you're going to practice that. Is it a one-hit wonder? No. But the more your children are good at being self-expressed and fully in their power, then you can bring in these other moments of their life where they can pull from it and go, yeah, actually I was powerful in that moment. Yeah, I was, knew my mind in that moment and was allowed to express. then you have a better chance of them finding that courage inside of them. And that is how I would recommend personally. Now, let's go bigger than that. How do you begin to change the world and the fact that all this bullying is happening? You know, I've been asked by a really big foundation to create a program for schools. But this is why I said yes, because they didn't say, how do you teach relationship and all the things you could be doing to improve, things that are useful and things that are not useful. They didn't say just teach the kids that. What they're saying is, can you help teach this to the parents and teach the teachers? Because what we want is, if we're raising a bully, yeah, and we don't know because our ego won't allow us to really acknowledge that we're raising, because parents get very defensive. It's like, no, it's not my kid. How about this? If somebody said something about my son and said he showed up as a bully, here's the first thing. I would notice inside of me that I felt something. I would notice that there's a defensiveness in me, because now it's like my ego on the line, my good parenting. But I can guarantee you that at some point I'm going to hold it, and I will hold it and go, thank you for that feedback. I'm going to do something. I'm going to look into this. And then I'm going to get vigilant about how I watch the dynamics in the household. I have to now start thinking about, what am I creating in this household? I have to watch the dynamic between their brother and their sister, their dynamic on a playground. I have to watch who their friend group is. I have to have my tentacles out in every direction. And I really think in order to change bullying as a whole, you can do that, changing the school climate. So the culture of the school has to be shifted, but only if you have parents, teachers, and the kids on board, and everyone holistically is upping their game. And then you can have the mentorship, where even if the parents are dropping the ball, the mentorship from the teachers and the mentorship from coaches in the school, but everyone is learning and growing that behavior doesn't fit into the culture. You can create that, but it can't happen in a vacuum by, a few charts on a wall and the teacher saying, let's be nice to each other. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. So valuable. There was a question in the chat box around, so if your child is being bullied, is there questions that you can actually ask the bully that kind of might disarm them in some of this, or is that not recommended? Or maybe there's different age ranges.
It's a slippery slope to ask, because you're the parent of your own child, and you're somehow going to get that other child and ask them a question and run the risk of the parent who comes in, who already might not be giving power and control, saying, why are you talking to my kid? So right. At the end of the day, I can only control my sphere of influence, right? And so if I'm going to put any effort, it's going to be on my child in how they, one, stand up for injustice. That's another conversation, because we know that when at least one person stands up, that begins to shift the game, but also how powerful and expressive they are in creating their own boundaries in their life. Yeah. And so amazing. That's where I put my efforts.
Okay, great. Yeah, that goes back to, for those of you who were on Renee Jane's call on Friday, which was so incredible about anxiety, but she recommended that we draw a circle and put ourselves in the middle of the circle, and the things that we can control in the middle of the circle, and the things that we can't on the outside of the circle, and really laser-like focus on those. Thank you, Rhea. So Amanda has a question. Her daughter is 10 going on 15. She is challenging, questioning my husband on anything that she doesn't feel like doing, homework and chores. Is there a way to encourage her to be more of a team player within the family rather than always negotiating? My 8-year-old and 10-year-old are listening less than they did before.
Well, first of all, this is where we get to put on a real creativity cap. And I can imagine, as you said, there's a lot of negotiation. So how do we make it into something that feels fun and engaging? I personally am a big believer in family meetings. I have a podcast that talks about how to hold a really good family meeting, but this is where you bring everybody in, and it's not like, hey guys, we got to talk about what's not working in this house. That's not a fun family meeting. This is you creating the space where there's yummy things to eat, and everyone's like, we're relaxed and it's the right time. And then as everyone's in this really yummy energy, we say, hey, I would love for us to have this meeting together. And in that process of the meeting. We're talking about, by the way, let's start off with what's amazing in the family, what's working, what do we like that each other are doing and supportive and all these wonderful things. And then what's something, before we even mention about, you need to, do your homework or whatever. See, the reason why I'm starting with this is because I want to figure out what is the experience. I want to gather intel, okay? And I'm going to get that intel about what's working well so I can still have my shoulders squared. And then I'm going to be able to introduce different things. But guess who's also working on herself in the family meeting and sharing what she needs to work on? Mommy's got a tone. I recognize I have a tone. Here's what my plan of action is. And you see how everyone feels like, oh, okay, that's something. This is not about pointing fingers about the kids. You need to work on something. This is something that feels egalitarian. And we're all upping our game. And there's areas that I'm not responsible, not responsible. There are areas that I'm falling short of that I can do better in, and being transparent and vulnerable with the kids about it. That piece I usually feel is missing because it becomes you need to do this, and no one feels there's the feeling that, well, you must have it all made or you're perfect. Yeah. So I love telling my kids about everything I'm working on, because there's a lot, Yeah.
And if you're paying attention, there probably is always going to be. Healing is not just a one and done.
It's not.
It's not. Don't we wish it was, though? Or not. I mean, this is the journey. This is life. It's why we're here.
Yeah, I agree.
Anna shares, my daughter is 7 and she constantly needs everyone's approval. And I feel this is unhealthy. She always asks the other kids, do you want to be my friend? And annoys them with this question so much until they say, no, I don't. And I don't want to play with her anymore. Same as with family. She needs to constantly say and hear, I love you from family and friends, and gets upset if they get annoyed by her always saying it and needing to hear it back. I have some ideas already about the question and the way that it's phrased. But Rhea, dive right in there. What's your advice here?
I'm really happy this question came up. And
I think it's a common one.
Yeah. So this fundamentally goes to the heart of what it is to take perspective, because we as humans are meaning makers, and we have the ability to make meaning of everything. And we usually choose the meaning that has us feel the worst. Like whatever has us feeling the shittiest, that's the meaning we can sometimes choose. How do I know that? Because so often as humans, we can think back to all the things, like that hurtful thing somebody told me in grade 4, my ears are too big. But we can't think of like the 1,000,001 things that people have said all the way through. So those things are like really poignant, like set in our brains. So your daughter, okay. So,
and I want to share just on the tails of what you shared there, the end part of the message, which I didn't read yet, is the mother saying that she was always very independent and confident growing up. So she doesn't know how to make her daughter confident as well.
Okay, so there's many things that we can look at. Sometimes there are places in our shadow that we're not aware of. Again, this can be a blind spot. There's a disconnect between we're showing up in a particular way, but deep down we might have some insecurities. I just have to throw that out there, that there's always a place for us to learn and grow and build some self-awareness around. But being able to help our kids, support them towards a more positive perspective as to how they've internalized what just went down. So I'm going to give an example. If somebody was playing outside at lunchtime and they didn't invite the child to play, like your 7-year-old to play, in that moment, so the child's first response might be, so you might ask the child, how did you feel today when Jessica didn't ask you to play? Because that's the story she just told you. She would say, well, I felt left out. And I go, why do you think she left? You weren't part of that skipping game. And she says, well, because they don't like me. Okay. So then you're going to say, okay, now remember, in that moment, your fears about your child not being liked is also in the space. We got to be mindful of this. The defensiveness of your child, your anger towards those kids, like all of that's coming up and we might not be aware of. In that moment, I'm going to go, okay, good. So they don't like you. That's one possibility. What else you got? Now I'm going to hold my child to 5, 10, like almost make it into a brainstorming game of all the reasons why. It might even get as ridiculous as an alien came in and they, somehow I was made invisible. But one of them would have been, at that moment when they looked over, I was playing with somebody else and they didn't think to invite me. Or like keep going down through the creativity as to what are all the reasons as to why. We can do this as an adult. If we're driving a car and somebody cuts us off and we think, what a jerk, we could go, they're endangering our life and they're endangering theirs. Or we could go, oh, they might be on their way to the hospital because their daughter's in the hospital. Their house might be on fire. Now, do we know the truth, Renee? No, we'll never know the truth, probably.
No. Yeah.
But in lieu of knowing the truth, what we want to help our kids brainstorm so they can choose the reality that allows them to see the world as safe, loving, and abundant. That's the goal. It's not to say, there's other little pieces I can say on this, but that's the goal, that there will be a million things that happen to all of us where we didn't get included or somebody gave you a look. I don't think they like me. That is a meaning that you're creating from the look. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe their boyfriend just broke up with them. Maybe their mom just yelled at them. There's a million reasons why. But if you hold on to that one, that they just don't like me, or they don't think I'm smart enough, good enough, whatever it might be, then yeah, you're going to hang on to that like with claws. So when a child gets used to brainstorming other realities, you're building a perspective-taking mindset, a different point of view. And then you start realizing, let me not get too attached to that one reality. And that, I would say, for every parent that's on this call today, that is something that you can start today. It's fun, and you can do that anytime you go to a playground, anytime you go to a coffee shop. Look at those people over there. What do you think they're talking about? What's that kid crying about while he plays in the sandbox? You can do that with a young child as well. Because he's got no shovel. Okay, that's one reason. Why else? Because his mom yelled at him. Like, do you see how you can start building? Like, that was a game that my father played with us from the time I could think, or that I knew I existed. And that helps you not get too attached to one particular reality. I
love that.
There's one other thing that I just want to share on that point, and that is just some things that I believe that's really important to download to kids. And that is, not everyone is going to like you. It seems simple, but I don't know if we actually have that conversation. And my goal is to find who my people are. So if my child doesn't feel like they have a lot of friends, I go, you know what? I see something, like, what do you love in yourself? And these are the things that I notice about you. And you're going to find your people, because there's only one way this is going to go. Of course, you're going to find your people. And they may not be in grade 7 or grade 9 or grade 10, but you will find them and they'll be your tribe and they will love you up like you won't believe. So, and the other one is sometimes that they're going to feel pain. Yeah.
Well, I love that so much, but you're giving, Anna, please let us know in the chat box if you're still on here, how you're feeling about this answer, because Rhea, that's so great what you just shared. Holding that light, taking the stand, having the back, of your child. It could be that her daughter has very high emotional intelligence and she is a connector. And there are going to be some people that really, really, really want to connect with her connector. And of course they're coming. Of course they are.
Of course they are.
I love that. The next question here, and you kind of touched on this about the questions that your dad was teaching you from a young age. Neha says, I'm curious, as a mother of a 2.5-year-old, is EQ, relationship building, something that can be trained from an early age? And if so, what could be some of the ways?
Absolutely. EQ can be, I would say EQ is practiced and taught from the time the child is born. And the reason why is because when you are attuned to the cues, every eek, every ah that your child makes, every how their eyes are constantly looking for you for direction and meeting that, responding to them in a timely way, what you're building is a sense of safety, like fundamental safety in the bones of that child, that their needs can be met and their needs are important. And that is tremendous towards the feeling of safety in a relationship. No matter what we're doing in our life, if we don't feel This is why I feel EQ is so important. If we don't feel safe in our relationships, well, what else is there? I mean, we could have everything, every check mark in the box, every car, boat, whatever. But if people don't feel good around us, and we don't feel like good around other people, then what's it all for? So that's why, I mean, I might be biased, but I think it's the most important thing ever to develop.
Yeah, and how for kind of the 0 to 3, which are the most fundamentally developing out of all the age groups, which is so interesting because in so many cases that is pre-verbal, you know, like you're sharing. What are some of the ways that we can show up in our presence and in our conversations, you know, with our infants and toddlers?
Got it. So I just spoke about perspective taking. Here's the thing I just want to share with that. Perspective taking requires theory of mind. So theory of mind is that what I feel is different than what you feel. A child doesn't come into that till they're about 4 or 5.
Okay.
So they live which is why, and a lot of research has gone into this, expecting a child to share, you know, from 4 and younger is an unreasonable request. It's usually done because of the parents' uncomfortability with the situation. But when a child is, children should not be forced to share. I don't know if that's scaring some parents out there, before 3. That's not a way of building EQ. If a child's brain is popping with neurons firing while they're trying to build that block and some other child wants it, then we redirect that other child to something fabulous and allow the magic to happen, unfold for your child. And then when the child is done, we can say, okay, we're going to, you know, lend this to Bobby. And only then. But expecting a child to share as a way to build EQ is not the way. So for 3, well, you know, there could be fun, very simple things. So emotional regulation, or the ability to calm down. So the way we learn how to calm down, you can teach this to your children, and this is probably what should be happening from 0 to 3. The child is coming into themselves. Sometimes their favorite word is no. So we as humans were never meant to self-regulate. We were meant to calm ourselves down in relation to another person. Who's the other person? You, the parent. So when you sit down and you're breathing and remembering that you're the sun, like the analogy that I use and I love is, I'm the sun and the child's the planet. This planet does not revolve around the sun. The planet revolves around the sun doesn't revolve around the planet. I need to ground myself and attune so that I am calm long before I try and figure out where that child's missing shoe is that they're so desperate to find. Because now I'm enrolled and I'm dysregulated, and in this magic moment, I'm actually upping the ante of my child's energies. So I'm going to make sure that I'm regulated, and that's the biggest work you can do, because you're going to have all your buttons pushed from 0 to 3. And then when your buttons are pushed, you have to go, well, what are the ways that I come down so I can hold space for my child? And in you modeling that, the child learns to emulate. So another easy thing that you can do with your child. So does that make sense, that one? The most important thing is to work on you, and then the child learns. You can put a teddy bear on a tummy of a 3-year-old and say, let's just practice raising the teddy bear up and down, just so they can be aware of their breath. Maybe they can practice different types of breathing, like a dragon breath. They can start becoming aware that they have a body and they're not just a head. You know, kids are discovering all this stuff, but we tend to disembody ourselves, right? So we never really talk about the body other than it's something to wash or look at your finger, but to let them realize that, okay, when I breathe, how does it feel? It's coming out of my mouth, doing a diaphragmic breath by raising the teddy bear. Those are the things I would focus on from 0 to 3.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, and one last thing,
Yes.
I just threw in there is the words. You want to build emotional language, probably more at like 2 and 3, but you can start having that conversation. So if you can have a 3-year-old that says, I feel nervous. You can have a 3-year-old that feels, I feel jealous. Those are words that are available if you support them with those words so they can understand what it means.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any books or other resources on that for those types of emotional?
I wrote a book on this because this is exactly what I felt was what helped my children start using emotional words. It wasn't.
And where can we get it? I'm gonna have Kaya put it in the chat box right now.
Okay. So
we all want this. We need it.
Okay. So the book's called Feeling Your Feelings. It's really cute because it's a book meant to read to a child, but the parent's also learning something in the process. If they go to opt-in, just opt in on my Build Great Minds. Yeah. And
okay, buildgreatminds.com, correct?
Yep.
Perfect.
Enter your email into that, and whoever enters in today and tomorrow, I can organize to get you guys a book.
Yay! Yeah. Thank you so much, Rhea. Okay, we're going to do a couple more questions here. How do you see being introverted versus confidence? I think this is a great universal question. I'm an introvert, so is my daughter. And sometimes I see people assuming being introverted with a lack of confidence. This is from Bethlehem. Oh, I love your name, from Bethlehem.
Yeah, that is a beautiful name. So there is no big distinction, because we're talking about different things. For extroversion and introversion, it has to fundamentally do with where we source our energy from, right? So an introvert can turn their thoughts, remember going back to thoughts and actions, can turn their thoughts into actions, but they might feel drained if they're around like a lot of people and there's a lot going on. They might prefer like a smaller group of people. Otherwise they feel like it just might have taken a lot of energy. So actually, this is really key, because as you engage with your child, you want to recognize where they source their energy from by asking really good questions and observing them. There's, I know a friend of mine, Antonia, she runs a site called Personality Hacker, but there's like really easy questions that you can ask your kids to try and help figure out whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, because we want to celebrate if your child is introverted. Sometimes we think that's we muddle that with confidence, but here's what we need to remember about confidence. Confidence is whether they can turn a thought into an action. If you can see that they're doing that, there's things that they want and they go after it, fantastic. But if they're not they're not the person who wants to be on the stage necessarily and go rah, 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 we got to watch about, do you remember that, like the bravado confidence and the quiet confidence? They introvert and extroverts can both have confidence, and they both cannot have confidence. Yeah. So
that's a great to bring it up and to actually have a conversation about it and how it can look and how it cannot look.
And also notice if you have your own biases towards extroversion or introversion, or, even around confidence, because if you have a bias and are unconsciously pushing that agenda inside the household, the child is never going to feel like they belong. Like just in Myers-Briggs, how they have all the distinctions. Here's something just to show an example of this. I'm a judger. I like lists. I like crossing things off, but I have a daughter that's a perceiver. The last thing she wants to see is a list and an agenda and a plan. And she's in a household of, I'm a judger, my husband's a judger, my son's a judger, from what I can see. So what do you think? Do I in any way want to steal from her genius or from her own way of doing things? I have to be so mindful in this judgery house that I don't sway her. So here's the thing. If you're an extrovert and you love that, some of those qualities about yourself, relish in that, but also recognize that your children are not you, and you want to figure that out so they don't feel misunderstood and therefore disconnected with you because you're pushing an agenda that's not meant to be pushed.
And therefore unsafe.
It feels unsafe.
Yeah, exactly. See, and this is where it gets so sneaky. And we just really get to go back to full responsibility and accountability across the board. Okay, let me do one more question here. The page doesn't work, buildgreatminds.com. Is that the site, Rhea, or are we getting it wrong?
Yeah, buildgreatminds.com. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out, guys. Don't worry. We're gonna have the repost up on Facebook. You're gonna have the follow-up email also from the sequence. And I also have other good news coming up in about 4 minutes from now.
Well, if it's not working, it will be working within the next couple hours. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, exactly. So don't worry. Everyone will get their things. Last question: how to deal with high achiever children having a fixed mindset? This is from Zakia. Thank you.
Can I get a little bit more?
Zakia, can you type in any more examples of how this is showing up?
Yeah, like a specific thing that's happening in the household. That would be helpful.
So we'll take this one in the meantime. My son is 4 and he cries for every little thing. He has too many tantrums every day. He thinks his wife is being too permissive, and she thinks that I have no empathy and I'm too hard on him. It could be an age thing, 4.
So I love the fact that, you know, your wife sharing something with you. We don't know that's true. Remember, whenever we get feedback from someone, we don't have to accept it as a truth. It's there for us to entertain. But it's worth entertaining because you didn't choose your wife in a vacuum. You chose the highest conscious person to be your greatest guide and teacher. That's what you unconsciously chose, is for somebody who can offer you a loving reflection. So that might be a possibility. If there is so what's the specific question he's asking?
I think he's just asking if maybe the 4-year-old is getting mixed messages and if that is maybe contributing.
Absolutely. So this is something that I talk a lot about, and it comes up in coaching all the time. Alignment between how 2 various different parenting styles that have been forged from an experience that is vastly different. Like how I was raised was fundamentally different than how my husband was raised. So what our values are going to overlap because we got married, but there's going to be values that we didn't even know we had until we started raising our kids. And until I figure out where is the disconnect in our value system, there is going to be a lack of alignment. So one person's doing boo. So now we have to think about what we have to reverse engineer it. What is it that we want aspirationally to create for our children, and then work backwards on how we would begin to create that. What would be the environment? And then there's sometimes a little bit more work that needs to be done in creating alignment, because sometimes there's a parent that shows up as a little bit more conscious, like they're reading all the books and they're doing the courses, and the other parent may not see as much value. So if that's the case, then you might want to get some coaching around that. But generally, that's what you're trying to do. So you sit down together and you think about, what do we want to have in the future as a child grows up, and things that we think are useful and beneficial for that child's life. And we figure it all out. And then we go, now we start deconstructing it. This is where we're reverse engineering. How would we need to show up then? And then you start building alignment that way. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that so much. Okay, everyone, it's happening. I'm going to reveal this. Let me see if I can do this. Please give your love to Rhea. Everyone on Facebook, share the Facebook video if you have received a lot out of this incredibly enlightening call. I myself have to go back and watch it, because I just didn't even have time to take down all the notes, because I was sitting here with the goosebumps, the whole time. You're getting a lot of love on here, Rhea. Thank you. The chat box is just blowing up with people thanking you so much. So thank you again, everyone, so much. See you soon. Take care, and bye, Rhea.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Rhea.